we've actually reserved the gym and pushing aside all the basketball rims and backboards and everything else because if it gets really bad this afternoon, we're going to go inside, and do our best to practice as best as we can. This morning we did meet with our players to review yesterday's film, just try to find that window in the weather. If it breaks, if there's a chance, supposedly, if it's just heavy bands of rain, we're going to go out there. It's going to be, the weather is going to be a little bit different this weekend up there in Pittsburgh. Shouldn't be rain, there should be 45 to 50 degrees, which is, we welcome that. For us, it's a big good weather to play. So.
Temperatures in the 50s today, right?
That's what we heard. I'm sure for some of these South Florida kids, that's a hand warmer game. You know what I mean?
You're gonna have beers on the sideline.
I think what they know. And one thing our coaching staff does a real good job of is making sure you're eliminating all those distractions. If you start thinking about the weather and making it an issue, then it will be an issue, just like anything else in life. So it's going to be obviously it's a very historical, program. I should say a program with great history is what I should say. Heinz Field, obviously, they've seen it on TV a bunch of times. Pittsburgh, watching them on film, that's about as physical as a football team as we'll see all year long. They are big, they are stout up front. Everybody talks about Cristobal. He is a phenomenal football player, but the rest of that front four and their backups are equally as talented and as effective. Very stout in the running game. They get great push up front. In pass pro, their three techniques are very athletic. Typically a big physical football team, you don't find those guys that can move around and have a legitimate pass rushing skills. What they do, and they've been very effective beating guards down, pressing and pushing that pocket up the field. And even with an injury at linebacker, the ones that we've seen on tape, they're very athletic. Their secondary, very athletic. A very disciplined football team as well. Their offense, when they're moving, when they get in sync, they're dangerous. Even though they've stumbled a couple times, it's not due to a lack of a scheme or a lack of process. There's been a couple glitches here and there, but they are very dangerous. And they proved it all last year and at moments of time this year as well. So we're prepared for a big-time challenge against another BCS opponent. Our kids are excited.
Do you get concerned when you look at like Lewis, who hasn't really had the kind of start to the year that he had last year, that gosh, this guy is due for a breakout game?
Mm-hmm. Anytime you see a great player, I'm sure, a great player that hasn't had his type of game or a game up to his standards, I'm sure that's always on that player's mind. I'm sure it's always on a coordinator's mind, whether we're analyzing a team or a team is analyzing us. We're very well aware of his talent and his capabilities. And you watch film this year, he's literally a shoestring tackle away from having the types of games that he's used to having. And so is Graham. He chalked up 100 yards against Miami. And if he touched the ball more, who knows, what could have been of that football game. So the talent on Pittsburgh's team is really, it's across the board. It's in the backfield, it's at wide receiver, it's at the quarterback position. Up front, very, very physical. And I know they made a move they made a move yesterday and moved the tackle to guard and moved up second team tackle. But what we see is a team that legitimately comes off the ball and tries to beat you up and is very effective in pass protection. Pro-style offense.
When you're seeing a team that comes off a loss like they had the week before, they're embarrassed on national television. Is that, you're not going to catch them napping at all, right?
Mm-hmm. No, I don't think we'll catch anybody napping. We'll never confuse work with accomplishment, so we don't feel like we've accomplished the things yet that we're going to accomplish. But I think the way we've played too, we've woken up some teams. Some eyebrows have been raised. As to hey, there's there's progress down there at FIU. Things are moving the right way. So I think their coaching staff and knowing some of those guys on that coaching staff, you're not going to catch them sleeping ever. They're always going to be prepared. And if you watch their games, whether last year, the year before, and even this year, even though it hasn't worked out exactly how they wanted to, that game at Utah, it's right down to the wire. That's Pittsburgh's ball game to win. And against Miami, if they do a few things a little bit differently, that could very well be a very different ball game. So we're very well aware of their capabilities.
It's your last chance to beat a BCS team. Would you say that Pittsburgh is probably one of the most physical BCS teams that you guys play this season?
I think so. We felt that over the summer watching them on tape. They have done a real good job loading up on those big bodies that are athletic and that pound you. And over the past couple of years, they have pounded teams into the ground. And they have forced quarterbacks to get rid of the ball early. And they have forced teams to get bad down in some situations. And most of it has been caused by the big guys up front. Now, in the meantime, it's a lot of the recruits and real good skilled guys to complement that. But they have won their games in the trenches and with stellar linebacker play. They get downhill, they get down on a hurry. They're sure tacklers. If you're out in space, you know, they're gonna hustle the football, they're gonna get you on the ground. Very disciplined, very explosive football team, and a very physical.
Coach, what are some things that you guys have been doing in practice this week to try to limit the big plays that you had against Maryland?
Absolutely, you know, and a lot of times big plays are due to lack of little things, or not doing the little things well enough, you know. For example, being a boxer when you're supposed to be a spiller, okay, take it on a block, you know, with the wrong shoulder, is what I mean. Sometimes, you know, our tackling technique, not running through the defender, you know, not wrapping up correctly, taking an improper angle, okay, not communicating, you know, on a certain signal to change a certain coverage or a certain front. So things like that, even though they seem like little things, they're not. You know, every single play nowadays, and a lot of these football games are coming down to 1, 2, maybe 4 or 5 plays, and you got to be on point on all of them. Okay, I'm sure there'll be you know, a real good college environment up there. There'll be some noise. The focus level and our attention to detail has gotten better and better, and it will continue to increase. So we worked on those situations, making sure we swarm to the football and make sure we get guys on the ground.
Is these 4 back-to-back BCS games, is it almost like a survival tool, because you go through that meat grinder and you're just worried about, you know, players possibly getting hurt and, you know, wearing down and all that?
Well, I think upon arrival a couple years ago, you know, I can't ever say that's our mentality. You know, we're in every single game. We prepare in every single game to win. We're aware of the fact we're the only team that plays 4 BCS out of conference opponents, but our players and our staff will approach that as a challenge. We want to win these ball games, you know, and you know, there's a lot of progress there, but these things have gone down to the wire, and it makes you hungry. And of course, you go in the locker room disappointed when you don't get what you want, but there's so much progress in getting right to that point where now what was a half of a quarter game 3 years ago is now a 4-quarter game, and sometimes the last drive. And all that means is that little that's left requires a boatload of work, and the boatload of work is something we're willing to do. And that's what's very encouraging, and that's what's exciting about being a member of this program every day.
Kind of a fine line between, you know, when you're playing somebody tough, but you've got guys playing over their head, or are they really that good? I mean, that's, I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain. See what I mean?
I'm with you.
You know, if they had a team that's playing, but you think you're past that stage?
Well, I think we're real clear on the same page on with our players and our staff, that every single week, regardless of who we're playing, we are going to have to be playing at our best, at the highest emotional level, with the highest intensity, with our best game plan in place. You know, we are nowhere near that stage where we can actually kind of take our foot off the gas a little bit and say, hey, we'll be okay this week. We can never be that, and we will never see that from FIU on Saturday. So we expect the intensity, the attention to detail, the play, the consistency to continually improve. But I know what you mean. You know, sometimes teams are playing up here, and other ones are playing down here.
Yeah.
We got to stay up here always. We have to.
I understand that. I guess what I'm trying to say is that, you know, if we play our best and do our assignments, we can compete, we can win the game, as opposed to we have to play above our heads to have a shot to win. That's, I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain, you know, but I mean, past that stage, you see what I'm saying? You know, in other words, if a guy plays out of his head, then the next week he comes back and he loses 50 to nothing.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm with you. And those are the little things, you know, and some things in football I don't think anyone will ever be able to figure out, you know, on why a team is phenomenal on one weekend and not so great on the other one. I can assure you, and just being a football player, now being a football coach, every team in the country is preparing. I mean, and everyone's preparing hard. Sometimes the ball bounces a certain way. Sometimes teams are a little bit prepared and better than others. Sometimes guys make plays a little bit more on one side or another. But the one thing that can never change is we talk about a lot is say, you know, it's not going to be won in that pregame speech. You know, it's not going to be won in a spectacular, you know, walkthrough on Friday night. It's going to be won in the off season, and it's going to be won through the process. And as long as we take care of our process, and then when we put our heads down to sleep at night on Friday night, we feel confident in everything that we've done, we're always going to have a chance to move forward.
Kind of piggyback on the question I asked before, though, but seeing that you have to be at that, you know, that intense level, you know, 12 weeks of the season, is that emotionally draining? Is it wearing? Is it, you know? I
think it's awesome.
Yeah.
I think it's the personality of our coaching staff. It's how I was raised. It's how the coaches that I had a chance, the pleasure, the privilege of playing for were, and it's the way it's got to be. It's got to be 4th and 1 every single day. And Division I doing football, for these young men now, it's a different deal. I mean, nowadays it's, your study hall hours are amped up, they're 10 hours a week, and, the course requirements and some other, obligations that you have. I mean, it's a full-time job. So you have to continually recruit, groom guys that love this game as much as they love anything else in this world to be successful. And I think we got a bunch of those guys in the locker room, and it's growing.
Greg Ellingson had a big game last week. He had some big plays on offense, some big special team tackles. Can you describe a little bit about the relationship between Wesley Carroll to Greg Ellingson? Does it seem like he's more comfortable throwing the ball than him? He just feels like he knows his routes more than any of the receivers.
Well, I think we found some holes in the defense, last week that we exposed a little bit, and Wesley did find him. And just as importantly, not only did he find him, Greg ended up making the play. And he's been around here a few years. He's worked hard. He's had a great summer. And his role is increasing more and more as we develop the youngsters like Willis Wright, Glenn Coleman, and Mitchell Wozniak, who will all play a significant role this week, by the way. They played some last week, and they didn't get touches, but they were all involved in special teams and played some offensive football, and they've had a good week of practice. And a lot of that was due to the mentorship of not only Greg, but Ty Frierson, T.Y. Hilton, all these guys have taken those young guys under their wings and have taught them a bunch of stuff. So not only is Greg's play helping us as an offense, but his mentoring skills is helping some of those other guys on the offense.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go. How does that complement to T.Y.'s abilities?
Well, the more guys you can have, we're starting to get some real good production out of Derek Perry, out of Mallory, and out of Jeremiah Harden. T.Y. is a good football player, has established himself as a threat. Greg Ellingson is doing the same right now. Ty Frierson is making good plays for us, and so has Wayne Times. Our tight end position, Foucher, made some big plays last week. The more of those guys you have, the less you can focus on one specific part of the field in defending an offense. So that's why we're encouraged. If we feel we're getting to the point we could trust a lot of different guys to get the ball to, and they can make something happen with it. The more we can do that, the more dangerous we become on offense, and in turn, the more we help our defense.
There, guys.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Ryan.
Be safe driving around, guys.